Hey everyone, welcome to Recap with Radical, where we look at all the news stories that we did not cover on the main PixelPlay podcast in the last 7 days. As always, my name is Adam, aka CS Radical. I shouldn't say as always, though. It's the first time we're doing one of these. Basically, like I just said at the top here, we're going to take a look at some stories that, we didn't get the chance to talk to over on the main show or on the side quest. These are stories that, I think have some amount of interest. I am always going to put probably something in there that's definitely just for me, but hey, I got to get a little bit of that in there. But this is basically just, me talking about some new stuff that, just isn't as interesting to go in for like a 40-minute conversation on the show. Because we used to do that a lot. We used to take a bunch of stories and talk about them quite a bit. But we got to a point where it didn't make a lot of sense because we thought it was way more interesting to, talk about things that would be a lot more insightful, things that could be a lot more, open-ended instead of just being like, okay, this story happened, this story happened. But there's also usually every week at least a couple of stories that, I'd like to say something about, but it's just really hard to find the spot to do it. And of course, we go on tangents so much on the main show where it's kind of hard to fit these all in. So I figure, hey, here's a great opportunity to do some of that. So the goal is that for every Monday, we'll be posting these. Now, these are going to be a little bit out of date, given that it's a Monday. I'm recording these every Wednesday, so it's the day after we record the main show, and you'll find out, well in advance. Like, you've probably heard about all of these stories, but you never know. There might be something that you may have missed, or you get a little bit of extra information on something. So we'll go with that, but let's just not hold back any further here, and let's get on to our first story. So let's just jump right into it with our first story. Ubisoft, our favorite punching bag, well, my favorite punching bag. I know Kaylan is trying very hard to not get too punchy with them, currently with Star Wars Outlaws. But with that in mind, their stock has tanked to a 10-year low after what is being presumed to be a lukewarm Star Wars Outlaws launch. So their stock prices have tanked by over 10% in the past 2 days. This is as of the 3rd of September, by the way, following a lukewarm reception to Star Wars Outlaws. The price at the time of the article that was written by Insider Gaming that I saw here was at 1550, and I believe that's euros. That's a symbol I haven't seen in a long time, but it's a level that has not been seen since December of 2014. As a result of lower than expected user ratings, the tepid response led JP Morgan to slash sales forecast by 2 million units, predicting 5.5 million units sold by March 2025. Insider Gaming also reported that X-Defiant, which is the publisher's free-to-play hit that was essentially trying to, go after Call of Duty, it firmly contributed to its Q1 final success, but is now in big trouble. The investors still remain optimistic about the publisher's future. With the game set to release on November 15th, Assassin's Creed Shadows will be crucial to making this fiscal year a financial success. So we know that Ubisoft as of late has really not been the same. Like, I remember for quite a long time that Ubisoft was what I look forward to the most at E3. In all honesty, there were a few years, I couldn't tell you what it was anymore, but I can tell you when it stopped. Watch Dogs. That's when it really changed. And that's when Ubisoft stopped being the belle of the ball and started becoming more of the, oh God, you're going down and you're going down and down and down. And now it's an I really don't care what you're doing territory at this point. And with Star Wars Outlaws, it's the same trend that seems to happen a lot with Ubisoft right now, or at least with their games, in that most people realize that if you just wait 3 to 6 months, you'll get it half off. In fact, not even 6 months. Usually it's within that 3-month area. You'll suddenly see these games for way cheaper. And by then they've been patched at least a little better. And you don't have to worry about, spending full price on a game that you might not either like, finish, or quite frankly, you just get bored of because, well, these open world games just seem to suffer from the same issue, which is too much copy and paste of content. And Assassin's Creed Shadows, there is a very good chance that it can revitalize Ubisoft a little bit, but I don't know if it's going to be enough to really make such a drastic change that can become, this big reversal point, unless it is legitimately game of the year contention. I don't think even a moderately good Ubisoft game is really going to change a lot of people's opinions of them right now. It's going to be something a lot more consistent and progressive over the next little while. Take a look at what Capcom did. Capcom was really not a happy place for a while for people, and over time, they just continually released either good, very good, or sometimes excellent games. And now Capcom, whenever I see their logo on something, I at least go, okay, that's probably going to be good. It's probably going to be a very well-made game. Whereas I see Ubisoft attached to anything, I mean, even if I was as interested in Star Wars as I once used to be, even putting a Ubisoft label to it just would have made me go, oh, great, another one of these. Like Ubisoft's going to ruin something else now. That's the overall perception I have, and I'm not the only one. Now, hopefully, with Shadows, that things can improve a little bit. But again, this is something that's really not going to see any improvement until the future, until we see a more consistent lineup. They have to have a pattern of solid games coming up before people are really going to take any notoriety of this, because one good game at this point doesn't mean anything anymore, especially with a company that releases as many games as they do. So if Assassin's Creed Shadows ends up being, let's say, a 9, are we really going to sit there and assume the next game that they release is going to be a 9, or are we just going to assume it's going to be back to the same old basic 7 out of 10? Hard to say, but at this time, it looks like that they've got some work to do, and obviously it's showing because the last 10 years have not been great to them as their stocks have completely gone back to where they once were back in 2014. But I want to leave it up to you guys. What do you guys think? Do you know if Ubisoft is on the right path right now? Do they maybe still have a long way to go? Do you think the stock could potentially even go way lower than this? Let us know in the comments below. So moving on with another company that just can't seem to get a win right now, Sony. One of their officers, their chief financial officer, Hiroki Totoki, was telling the Financial Times that whether it's for games, films, or anime, we don't have that much IP that we foster from the beginning. We're lacking the early phase of IP, and that's an issue for us. They're essentially talking about how they don't have enough original IP, and this definitely really ruffled some feathers because a lot of people are looking at a massive list of games that they've wanted to see either come back or surprised that hasn't even had a remaster or remake of any kind. But Totoki also added that Sony as a whole has been better at finding new audiences for existing popular IP and thinks that the company won't grow without creating content from scratch for higher returns. I don't necessarily disagree. I do think that there is certainly an open window for new IP. I think we're always looking for something new, but they really should, especially at this point, because right now, the biggest complaint that we've all had with Sony at this time is that their games library has suddenly dwindled. It is nowhere near to the amount that they have had in the last little while. Now, we again are just coming out of the pandemic and projects have been kind of getting shuffled around, but we also know that they've been canceling things. Obviously, The Last of Us live service game was taken away. Concord recently just got taken down. We don't know what else they're doing when it comes to any of their other live service games that they're working on. Not to mention, Marvel's Wolverine has been very quiet for a while. There's a lot of things that we don't really know about. We don't really know what's on the horizon, pun intended, I guess, for what Sony's coming up with right now. The PlayStation first-party library does not seem like it's as vibrant as it used to be. And the fact that, there is company leadership, including Hiroki Totoki, saying that there isn't enough original IP is, quite frankly, false, but also indicative of how much they really don't trust their old IP and bringing it back. Because, you think about what's still on the board that hasn't been around in a while, like Sly Cooper, for example, Twisted Metal, SOCOM. I've been talking about SOCOM for a while now. They could use something that would be different from what they're normally doing, get into the tactical shooter department. But Infamous, Killzone, Jak and Daxter, Resistance, Ape Escape, the list goes on. There's quite a lot of things. And even in the JRPG, because again, that's my home, Legend of Dragoon, they put out a remaster and did a poor job at it. And I'm sure that they're looking at that being well, clearly no one wants it. Well, if you don't try, that's what's going to happen. And the reality is, at least in my opinion, is that they have more than enough IP. They don't need to start anything new. I'd like to see more new original IP, but quite frankly, I would rather just see more. I would rather just see more games in general. And when you have games like Sly Cooper, Ape Escape, Jak and Daxter, Twisted Metal, there's a lot of games that they could bring out that wouldn't take nearly as much work. You don't have to do these 5+ year development cycles for these massive open world games or whatever else is going on these days. You can make a much smaller experience in 2 to 3, if not at most 4 years, and start revitalizing your library and having more stuff every year and making people think that, when you're buying their console, that there's going to be a constant influx of games and good ones at that. And I truly believe still at this point that they are making some of the best games on the market, Concord notwithstanding, but they are still in the habit of making really good experiences. Now, are they at the 10 out of 10 level that they were a few years back? I don't think so. I think they're now hovering in the 8.5 range normally as an average, which is not terrible. It's actually pretty good, but it's not that same level that we saw, especially in the PS4 era, especially in its later cycles, where things were just really at its best. I think there's a long way to go here. But I don't think necessarily creating new IP is the answer, because also new IP generally means much more time is being taken, because now you got a lot of pre-production in terms of getting all the conceptual formations of everything. I would rather see them start to just keep the library more vibrant first, bring back some old franchises that you don't have to do nearly as much work on, make some smaller games, get some more independent stuff going. Like, again, smaller projects. We keep saying this on the show. We need to stop with this massive open world or just massive games that take years and years of development. Get a small team together, get a 2 to 3 year development cycle, put a smaller budget on it, and start making some more bite-sized stuff. Give us some 5 to 10 hour games, give us some 10 to 15 hour games. We don't need these over the top 25 plus hour games anymore. It's nice to have them when they're good, but so many of them end up just being very, not as interesting. They get boring really quickly. They feel like a lot of copy and pasting. They don't feel as lifeful as other games do. I really do feel like, they just need an overall rehashing of their current strategy, and just to start like really concentrating on quantity of stuff, because the quality is always going to be there. These guys generally put out really good games anyway. But the problem that we're having now is that there's too much of a gap in between. It's the same problem that Nintendo has with so much of their first party, where every year you're going to get like at most 3 big releases from Nintendo, and everything else you just hope is like a decent third party entry. But for Sony, they really just need to buckle down and start really focusing on getting some good, quick stuff out there, in a smaller window. And whether that's a new IP or bringing back something from the dead, I don't really care either way. But the idea that they say that there's not enough original IP in their library right now is very, very stupid to be saying. And to say that, I'm sure it was for investors. I'm not sure, although, what that really helps for us. But as a consumer, we go, we know what you guys have. There's a bunch of things that you're just not doing anything with. Now, you can just say out loud that you just have no interest in doing that. But the expectation that we have is when you say you don't have enough original IP, we go, okay, but we can count on like 2 hands, ones that you're not using. So use them. Problem solved. But what do you guys think? Does Sony actually have enough original IP? Are they still, short of what they might need to really make the most vibrant possible library that they have? And, if there's an IP that you think that they should be bringing back, given that I gave you a good list of stuff, what's the ones that you're looking for? Are there any that I missed? Let us know in the comments below on that one. Next up, all 3 of us, between me, Kaylan, and Chris, are going to be very happy about this one. I know Chris especially, because, he's the type of person that just doesn't want to carry games on the go with him, and really just, doesn't like that kind of stuff. But Balatro, we talked about it before. Would love to see it as having a mobile release, and sure enough, it's going to get one on September 26th. I've been thinking about this for a while. I honestly do not play games myself on mobile devices anymore. It's not really a thing that's interesting to me anymore. I'm very much a sit at my desk kind of guy. Anywhere that I go, I drive, so it's not really in my best interest to play anything out. And generally speaking, if I'm ever out of the house, I'm doing something that would not have me sitting around doing nothing, that I could just play a game. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. But that being said, I would get Balatro on mobile. It seems like a great game to just kind of carry with you. And if you have like 15 minutes and you're just waiting, you can play a few rounds and it's good. So the idea that they're doing this, and actually quicker than I thought, I was surprised to see how quickly they were announcing the release date. I figured it'd be a little bit more in the distance. But at the end of September, we're going to see Balatro on mobile devices, which is fantastic. I'm hoping that the user interface for that ends up being really, really solid. Being on a smaller screen, it'll be interesting considering, there's a lot of click and dragging in Balatro. So hopefully they're able to make it work. I can't see why they wouldn't, though. I mean, they did such a fantastic job with the base game. I can't imagine them not putting the same amount of work into their mobile device. But that's definitely something to look forward to. You guys in the comments, let me know, like, how excited are you for Balatro? And in fact, since, we're also in that, what's your Balatro strategies? What are your favorite things to go to in that? And do you think there's going to be anything interesting when it comes to the mobile release? But let us know what you think in the comments below on that. And last but not least, my personal addition to this list, Trails in the Sky, the remake that's being developed. We got confirmation from Neon Falcom that it is indeed 100% in-house, because a lot of people thought initially with the trailer that came out for it that the graphics were a little too beautiful and kind of made them think that there might have been a different studio working on it, because it was certainly a much different looking game to what we're currently seeing with Trails into Daybreak, which was released earlier this year. But Toshihiro Kondo, I should say, the president of Nihon Falcom, he did assure fans that everything that has been shown is produced in-house 100% by Falcom. So we at least know at this point that it's not being worked on by like an outside studio. They're not just shoving the work onto somebody else, which honestly, when I saw those thoughts coming out with people, I don't know what they were thinking. Like, Falcom has never really done that as far as I can tell. Like, localization, different story. That's where you get into things like what happened with Xseed and things like that. But like, the games themselves have always been in-house. So, the idea that they all of a sudden would have changed everything to have it produced somewhere else just seemed weird to me. But I didn't really at the time think that there was any merit to that. And now that we have that kind of confirmation, it kind of just puts that to bed. But I do think that like this is a really exciting time. Now, I've said before that I'm not the biggest fan of how the combat system has changed since Daybreak has come out, but I do believe that, and I even said it in my review of Daybreak, that, the story is going to be what carries these games with the way that the combat is. And now with Trails in the Sky seemingly very similar to what Daybreak's combat system in terms of its mix of turn-based and action RPG, I believe that this is going to be a much more better result, because we know already, because of playing the original Trails in the Sky, that the story is going to carry itself way better, at least in my opinion. I do think the story between Sky and Daybreak is way different. Sky is just way better, way more interesting. I'll just say that Daybreak is bad, but Sky is going to have a much higher ceiling in that regard, at least in my opinion. So the excitement for this remake continues to just be really high for me. I know Chris as well, because he's played the original, is excited to see that too. As mad as he is that he's going to have to replay Trails again when he's still all these games behind and wants to play all those games. But hey, Chris, that's what you get for having a massive backlog. Sorry, but you're also a JRPG guy. You know how long these things are. But yeah, I'm really excited for this remake. Honestly, like, I'm a little tentative to be a little pessimistic now with Falcom games, just because honestly, like, Ys is completely out of my sight lines these days. I have not enjoyed an Ys game since the Ark of Napishtim, but Trails has been generally really, really good to me. Daybreak is the first time that I kind of went, this isn't that great. It still wasn't a bad game, but it was at the point where I definitely did not leave it as happy and as fulfilled as every other Trails game has done before it. So I am a little bit more concerned. Those fears, I guess, will be decided when I play the second game, which apparently is going to be released next year, at least by the sounds of things. So we'll see. But at least in terms of a Trails in the Sky remake, I am 100% behind this game, so there's going to be nothing stopping me from playing that. But you guys in the comments, let us know what you think about the remake. Is the trailer, something that makes you get interested in it? Is it, are you someone that's even played the series before? Is it something that you have looked into but haven't got to? Does this game make you want to play it? Or if you're on the other side and you've been playing the series, either you've only played this game, or if you've played, most, if not all of the series, does this make you want to go back and play the original? Let us know in the comments below. But that's going to do it for this episode of Recap with Radical. Thank you so much for checking us out. Obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're listening to this on any of the various audio platforms, Stitcher, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you really get your audio recordings these days, if you have any way to give us a rating, please do so. If there is a way to comment, please leave a comment there. We always take a look at what we've got there. And don't forget our link tree, linktr.ee/PixelPlay Podcast, where a link to our Discord, link to our socials, wherever you can reach us there. But with that being said, guys, thank you so much for checking us out here on this first episode of Recap with Radical. These are going to be every Monday, assuming that we have a good chunk of stuff to do. I can't imagine I won't be able to find something every week for this. But don't forget, main show is on Wednesdays, and our bonus content on YouTube is the side quests on Fridays, all of which are released at noon Eastern. So take care, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye for now.